right, it is a bright, nice morning in the middle of November. And it's a happy day for the little Attex. This is one of my more unloved machines of the fleet. Poor thing. Let's get it out in the sun. We'll talk a little bit more about its story and what it needs. All right, so we got it out in the sunshine. So this is my Attex ST300D. I think this thing's late 60s, early 70s. I've never really looked it up. I picked this thing up in Pennsylvania for $300. Way out in the middle of nowhere, like way out there. My buddy Joel. Super nice lady. Her late husband had allegedly had it running, and then it just sat. So during that time, the original tires went kaput. So in a previous episode, probably a year and a half ago now, we put all new tires and wheels on it, cut some custom adapters because this is a funky little 3-lug. We also had to do a fair amount of work to the motor. So this is a J-Lo Rockwell 295. It's like a 2-stroke snowmobile engine, basically. We adapted a carburetor off of a KTM 300 onto it. We had to do coil. I think a coil was the only thing we had to do for the ignition system. Fix that. What else? I ended up doing crank seals on it and a few other minor things, but really the engine's in decent shape. It's just everything around it that's meh. So some of the big issues. So I did get to drive this thing once, but it didn't really steer the best, and the belt slipped like crazy for one big reason. The engine mounts are shot, which causes the exhaust to pull out of the muffler, so it's super loud. The charging system doesn't work, which kind of stinks because we need an electric fuel pump to pump fuel out of our tank. It's not quite high enough. This thing has a whole slew of issues, but really all in all, they are pretty minor. Now, I've been putting off working on this thing because the first thing I really needed to do was fix the recoil start. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, my buddy Steven was helping me try and get it running, and he was the unlucky sucker that was pulling on it when the cable broke. So I stayed up late last night. Man, if you ever want to stimulate your brain, try and put a pull cord assembly back together that's unlike any other one you've ever worked on that you took apart 2 years ago and didn't put back together right. But somehow or another, I got it. So that'll be probably today's first project, is slap that on and see if we can get it fired up maybe, and then go from there. Well, I thought we had this figured out, but now it's seized up the first time I tried to pull the engine over, so let's see what's going on here. Everything seems all right here. Aha, that's our issue. See how the cable's up. Just gonna push that down. Aha, there we go. I don't know how we can prevent that from happening again. But while I have it open, I'll show you how it gets assembled. Because I could not find any information. I found like one right up in an old forum, but I couldn't load any of the pictures, so it was kind of useless to me. You put that plate like that, grease the hell out of it. This guy goes like that. This guy goes like that. These little washers, kind of cool how they work. I'll show you in a second. But they sit in the end here. So those little washers and those caps, they ride around in these grooves here, and that's how they get caught and get sent in or out to catch the gear, or whatever you would like to call it, on the flywheel. All right, let's get this put back on and we'll try again. All right, finally installed. Let's see if it'll work now. Yeah, so that'll work. But you can see the issue with the engine mounts. So I think next step might actually be pull the engine and try and figure out what's going on with those mounts, which isn't particularly hard. It just kind of stinks. So working on one of these, if you've ever worked on a 6x6, just imagine taking a 2-stroke engine and putting it in the bottom of a very large bathtub, and think about how fun that would be to work on. Constantly bent over. I'm just complaining, but we'll pull the 2 engine mounts and scoot this baby out of here and see if we can make some engine mounts somehow. All right, see what kind of damage I could do to my back today. So we get the belt off, the carb top hat, and the kill wire unhooked, and then the 3 bolts in the front. That should be everything. We also had to undo the exhaust manifold just to get enough clearance back here. So it looks like we have some goodies down there. 2 clamps. And illumination fruit snacks. And a whole lot of acorns and stuff. So when I bought this thing, it was like filled to here all the way with pine cones, mouse droppings, you name it. Okay. So I think we'll vacuum some of that stuff out, and I'll show you what's going on with the mounts. All right, we got a little better. I really hate that vacuum, but it was free, and its life and duty consists of sucking up mouse houses out of old clappers air boxes and stuff like this. So I probably wouldn't be too excited about my job either. Yeah, I got a little cleaner, so let's investigate some motor mount options. So over here on the engine, this is the back of the motor. So it has a mount plate here that the engine could slide on to tension your belt, but the rubber mounts itself are all completely blown out. So basically it's a little piece of angle iron with some rubber at. They were all blown out when I got the thing, so I don't know how they really work. And down here, we've just got that little piece of channel. So we have pretty good rubbers on the front, and I am currently honestly just leaning towards slapping it together with solid rear mount of some sort, and leave the rubber isolation to the front of it. I don't have any kind of rubber around here really to make it mounts, so I think that'll work for now. I don't know. This thing's already going to vibrate like a son of a gun, I'm sure. Let's look into that. I hate using a cutoff wheel when I have a perfectly good chop saw, but my chop saw likes to blow my garage breaker, and I don't feel like dealing with that today. Working out our engine mount here. I had high hopes for this punch from the old Harbor Freight, but barely even leaves a mark. You might as well not even use it. Yeah, so don't buy one of these little hand center punches. They're a great idea, they just don't really work well. I'm sure someone sells a good one out there. Gotta go with old reliable. Jeez, if I can even keep it in the vise. I think it's about time this little Chinese mill drill combo either gets upgraded to an actual milling machine or we do some serious upgrades to it. We got our holes drilled, but at what cost? Holy crow. I think we only got about, I don't know, 5 to 10 more uses before that baby's gonna let go. That is the worst belt I've ever seen that's still operating. I don't know what happened to this one. Where this one's fine, I don't know. But we're gonna close that cover and that'll be a future Patrick problem. All right, so got our mount bolted on. We're ready to throw this thing in. One thing I wanted to do before we do bolt it in is get some measurements on this starter hole here. So we've got a 2 3/8 diameter and 3 3/4 bolt spacing. So I'm really hoping to find an electric start for this. If you search for them by this engine, they are completely unobtainable. So I'm hoping I can find one that's close from something else and make it work, because I really like to be able to hit the electric start and fire this thing up instead of throw the hood open, pull start it every time. So I don't know. Let's get it in. All right, right off the bat, I see one issue. I didn't think about those bolts sticking down. So we need to pull that little piece back out of there and weld those bolts in facing up so there's nothing on the bottom. All right, that is a good feeling. We got it bolted in there solid now. I'll show you the mount we just made. Worked good. So I just cut the heads off those bolts, welded them to that square tubing so that they can sit flush against that bottom mount. Makes it a lot easier to install when you don't have to worry about getting a wrench on the bottom too. So that's installed. We got the belt on. I guess we'll go ahead and throw the carb top hat back on, hook the kill wire up, hook fuel up. I don't know what's going on in that tank. That fuel's been sitting there for 2 years now, probably. And I guess go ahead and see if this thing will fire up. And we'll go from there. Okay, so I decided I should probably check into this fuel system before we go pumping it into my carb. And yeah, not looking great. So there's very little fuel in that tank. I think we'll run our little, I forgot I still had the electric pump down there. So we'll run that for a minute into a jug or something, see what comes through, and go from there. Now, it's pretty often we're working on abandoned equipment in this on this YouTube channel, but not often that I'm working on stuff that I abandoned. So it's been over 1.5 years. I should get that fuel out of there. I feel bad for I've let this thing sit around. It's super cool and put a bunch of money into the tires. But anyway, we're changing this today, right? We're working on it. So let's pump that fuel out and see what we get. All right, a little trick I use almost weekly that I'm not sure everyone knows is, in a pinch, for something like this 12-volt fuel pump, an 18-volt Milwaukee battery. I'm sure DeWalt, I'm sure everything will work, but I like using the Milwaukee batteries because you get this nice little positive and negative right here. You can hook them up. And it'll work. Now, 18 volts is going to hurt a 12-volt thing. At least I've never hurt one, and I've done this on probably 50 different fuel pumps, lights, and things throughout the years. You know, this is pumping out some nasty goop. That stuff's looking pretty disgusting. All right, it's actually looking much better now. You can see that nice blue hue that two-stroke should have. So, almost a full coffee cup of gunk. And it's looking good. I'm gonna fill that coffee cup all the way, and then we'll cut it off there and fill the tank up with some fresh stuff because it looks pretty empty. So I am the king of spilling things, and just lived up to my name. I dumped half that coffee cup on the ground. Let's clean that out of there somehow. I don't want to make this thing combustible. More so than it already is. All right, got my level 3 environmental disaster cleaned up as best as I can, at least. We hooked the fuel up, pumped it into the carb for a minute. I'm not going to leave the pump on while I start it for the first time, or attempt to start it for the first time. Who knows if this thing even has spark anymore. I hope it does, because if it doesn't, that means we got to get under the flywheel and undo a bunch of work we just did. But hey, let's hope it just has spark. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and get this kill switch bare. I didn't hook it back up, because you need to ground it out of the motor if you want to shut it off. So we'll have that at the ready. It's in neutral, I think. And I guess let's just give it a shot. Here goes nothing. Hit it with a skosh of carb cleaner. That carb looks disgusting. I need to get an air filter on this thing stat. Wow, I forgot how loud that is. Alright, well, it's got spark. Oh, yeah. I need to get that exhaust hooked up. I forgot about that. Yeah, that thing's wicked loud. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and hook that flex pipe up back there that I promptly forgot about, and then we'll give this another shot. Well, how long should a exhaust take to hook up? 5 minutes, right? 2 hours. Holy cow. So it's just a little piece of flex pipe from there to there. You got to get it on that flange. I had to take the motor loose, undo the manifold again, weld the pipe to the manifold because it kept slipping off. And then, finally, with the motor loosened, like all the way up here, got the pipe hooked up, and then I had to pry the motor into its spot so that the flex pipe would bend the way it needed to. But we finally have that hooked up. Whew. Okay. We can go ahead and try and fire it up again, I guess. All right, let's give it another go. Hopefully a lot quieter. We're going to run the fuel pump the whole time now, so maybe it'll actually run. Sorry, I'm right in front of your face. I'm trying to hook up the electronics here. All right, hopefully a lot quieter now. That was something. Yeah, it doesn't have any fuel to it yet. All right. I think I might go get some fresh fuel, make up a nice mix for it. I want to try and prime it with starting fluid. No good for 2 strokes. All right, we filled up the tank with some fresh fuel. I ate some lunch, stretched my back out. See if it'll go now. Wish I had a nice little spray bottle or something to baby feed it some 2-stroke right into it, but I do not have anything like that right now. So we're just going to have to pull it till it climbs. Oh, you son of a gun. The frickin' pull star just seized up again. I don't know why that cable keeps doing that. I've never had that happen with a pull start. Well, I guess we gotta pull it off. There's no getting around that, I don't think. I need to learn to be a little more gentle with it. Alright. I'm starting to hate that pull cord. I need to find an electric start for this thing stat. But we got it back together. I had to pull it all the way apart and fix it. We also shortened up the cable. I think that's why I kept getting caught up. So, let's hook our battery back up and try and get this thing fired up. It's obviously got a fuel issue, so let's figure that out. All right, we got our carburetor off here. So this is a Kippa carb. It's like a Chinese version of, I think it was either a KTM 250 or a 300, I thought, carb. I just got it on Amazon based on the diameters here. And then I was able to get a little adapter, rubber adapter. I'll show you when I reinstall it. Both of these are just kind of universal. They're not actually made for this machine. But the carb actually works really pretty good, from what I recall. But it sat with fuel in it, non-running for a year and a half. So, can't blame it too much. All right, I need to get a different screwdriver. A couple weeks back, we had a conversation on a video. Might have been when we got the Big Bear running. That, the green Big Bear, not the blue Big Bear. Blue Big Bear was Nightmare. But anyway, we had a conversation about screwdrivers being specific to carburetors. And quite a few people had commented down below my video about which type of screwdrivers I need to order. And I need to go ahead and order one that's made for these Chinese screws. Or Japanese, I guess, properly. But for whatever reason, this little short screwdriver here, I have no idea where it came from. But whenever I think I'm about to strip out one of these, I grab this baby and it saves me every time. All right, what are we thinking? Is this going to be no good? No, I don't think it's going to be too bad. Oh, it's not good, that's for sure. Huh, that's kind of a weird gummy pattern. I guess this side just sat a little lower. All right, definitely needs to be cleaned. The fuel that came out of here was nice and green, so that wasn't helping our case. So I think we found our smoking gun. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get this all cleaned up. I don't think I'm gonna dip it. I don't want to try and pull that O-ring out of there. I'll probably destroy it. So we'll just blow it out, do the works. I just noticed a huge mouse nest flew out of the exhaust of this thing when I was running there a couple minutes ago. All right. You like that guy? That's pretty custom, isn't it? That was not on purpose. Yeah, doesn't look too bad. Pop the jets out of there. Main jet looks like it's about a 6mm socket to get it out of there. That's a big jet. What size are you? Doesn't say, but I can see through it pretty well. All right, we got it pretty well cleaned up. Ran it through a hose, blew it out, blew every jet out with carb cleaner, ran torch tip cleaner through it. Tried to scrape most of the gunk out of the bowl. Got most of it, but really needed soaking, but like I said, I think I'm going to trash that O-ring if I try it. So we are going to move forward like this. I need an ultrasonic cleaner bad. All right, we got our carb on here. Here you can just see that rubber adapter I bought. I wish I knew the dimensions offhand. I do not. It works. It's not great. This thing used to have a Tillotson carburetor with a pulse pump in it, and I don't think I could find a rebuild kit for it. So, that's why I adapted this carburetor on here. And like I said, it works pretty good. Looks like our float just stuck a little bit, or maybe this pump is a little too much for it. But that means we have fuel. So I'm going to go ahead and fire it up and see what happens. We solved our running issue. I'm gonna let this thing vent. I would say it's getting plenty of oil. All right, so that's pretty big. We got this thing running again. The engine is held in place. The recoil start does work, although it can be a little frustrating. Awesome. So here's where I would usually hop in this thing and go for a spin. But the problem is I don't have very much space here. And I could very easily end up, I mean, if I end up in that neighbor's yard, that's fine. But the end of my yard is just right into someone's house. And don't really want to run an Attex through someone's house. So the last time I rode this thing, I remember not really having very much steering. And I attributed it to the belt not keeping much tight. Keeping no tension because the motor was flopping back and forth. So I think now that it's taut, we may have a chance of having some steering and brakes because, well, steering, we should have brakes no matter what. Yeah, basically last time it would just slip anytime I tried to turn. I don't know though. So I definitely need to at least hook up the kill switch. We gotta tidy up the fuel system a little bit. Somehow, at least temporarily. Maybe we'll see if we can just pull it forward and backwards here and go from there, I guess. Well, here goes nothing. I've got a kill switch temporary rigged up, and we'll just see what happens. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get it fired up one more time. Show you guys what's going on here as I try and figure it out myself. So this is what I feared. The transmission is not transmissioning. I don't completely understand this thing. I thought it just worked under a concept of it's a forward and reverse box in there. And then obviously you have your other end of your torque converter here that goes to the engine. That's all pretty self-explanatory to me. We have our chain outputs on either side for each side of the machine. Makes sense. And then I think all that happens is there's 2 disc brakes down here. But maybe I'm not understanding it right, because the thing doesn't, it's not like it doesn't want to stop. It doesn't want to go is the issue. Our belt tension's damn good. I wouldn't think that's our issue anymore. So I'm going to have to do some research. This is a power transmission, Series 7000 by the Attex ATV manufacturing company, who I assume they bought it from this power transmission company. Booger. Okay, I figured out how this guy works. It's actually quite simple. So like I said, forward reverse transmission in the center, torque converter here. Each side we have 2 rotors here. And off the rotors themselves, we have these chains. So when you push forward, let me see if I can get some light down there. When you push forward, which is engaged, you're pushing that caliper against the rotor. So when it's just sitting here and you're not trying to go anywhere, these center 2 rotate on their own. As soon as you pull that, see how they're locked together? So that's the concept. Now what I needed to do was adjust the pucks. Now I already did this side. I think I made it a little too tight. But to adjust the pucks, you go back here behind the caliper, and you see that nut down there? And there? You undo the lock nut, and then there's an Allen key way in there. And you turn it in clockwise, and that somehow there's some sort of cam in there. That's what adjusts your pucks, so you get more engagement. I think I already did that one, figured it all out. I think I adjusted it too much. We'll go ahead and do this one. Maybe we'll take it for a spin. All right, so it's really hard to show, especially when my camera will focus. But as I crank out back there, you can see that little puck is peeking out. So I think we're good there. I don't want to go too far. All right, one more and then we'll give it a spin. that is a huge difference. I think I broke the seat in half, though. Well, that was our issue. Holy cow, is that thing fun. Oh, I wish it was daylight. Yeah, it does its thing now. It's going to be quick. I can tell that already. Man, I wish I would have started working on this thing earlier today when it was daylight. The moral of this whole story is I've waited too long. All right, I'm going to get it spun around. We'll push it in the garage. I want to service that transmission and do a couple other things. Make it a little bit more reliable. But the transmission and drive system does, in fact, work, as you guys just saw. And man, is it a blast. All right, we got it shoved back in the garage here. Man, is this thing a blast. We'd love to take it for more of a spin, but I won't be able to get a video in the dark. And this thing really does need some other stuff. So I haven't the slightest clue what is in the transmission for oil. Yeah, should have checked that, but I didn't. Live and learn. I don't think that short of a trip would have done any damage, even if it is dry. The other big issue, we don't have an air filter on this thing, and that's a big problem because of all the dust that's probably blown up in here. Yeah, so that's not good for that carb that we just cleaned. So I need to order an air filter. We need to get some gear oil for the trans. Get some lube on these chains. Really needs a charging system, and I know the coil or alternator under the flywheel is doinked because I hotwire. Yeah, long story. I killed the coil by accident a year or so ago. And that really sucks because that means we need to pull. You could probably do it in the tub of this thing, but it would really suck to do. So we'll probably have to pull the engine again, do that. So we need a charging system so that we can run our fuel pump. I don't know. Maybe for a day of riding, I could probably get by running it off of a 12-volt pump. Seem to have good luck doing that on the mini Jeep. And what else? Something else. Oh, shifter linkage. I don't know how it's supposed to look originally, but this is supposed to have some sort of linkage out to here so you can shift it forward, reverse. We need to reinforce the rotten floor of the seat because I heard it cracking while I was sitting on it. Better kill switch. Yeah, this thing needs a lot of work, obviously. But, man, I can't believe I let this thing sit around for like a year and a half, and all it needed was like a day's worth of work and no money so far. It's going to be like $20 worth of plywood and air filter to get this thing ready to roll. So, oh well. You live and you learn, right? At least I got to it sooner or later. Anyway, that's enough yapping. I'll pick you guys up when I am ready to move forward with the next thing. I'm trying to dig through my stock of junk. See if I have any plywood. The only thing I have is this door. You think my landlord would be pissed if I sawed it in half and used it for my Attex? I'll leave him the other half. It's either that or sheet metal. Freaking wood. Oh, yeah, they were partying against the flywheel cover. All right, sorry. So I wanted to do my due diligence and check and make sure that charging coil is actually junk, and I am happily wrong, it looks like. So we have 30-some volts, so that's AC. Awesome. So maybe we don't have to pull this engine. I thought for sure I'd let the magic smoke out of them, like when I first tried to get this thing running, trying to figure out how to make it get spark, but I guess they're kind of durable. All right. So with that, we need to dig in and figure out some wiring because this all used to be in it. This is the whole wiring system for a J-Lo Rockwell 295 and a Attex ST300. Should be pretty easy. I think the two yellows go here, and then they're going to go somewhere else. I don't know. Not worried about headlight wiring right away. I'm missing a headlight anyway. All I want to do is charge the battery right now to run the fuel pump, and I will be happy as could be. Cool. All right, I'm going to start making a harness for this thing and figure out the wiring, and I'll show you guys when I have something made up. All right, I'll admit, I got a little sidetracked and went and bought a toy. But that's for a future video. So I lost about 2 nights worth of work on this thing, but I stayed up late tonight, and we've got some wiring going on. So we mounted our voltage regulator back where it's supposed to be in its factory location. That gets the 2 wires out of the, I'll show you on our handy dandy little wiring schematic from 6x6world.com. So the regulator, or rectifier here, sorry, because it's converting AC to DC, my bad. That takes the 2 yellow wires that I had just checked for AC voltage in that last clip. Rectifies them from AC like 40 volts to 12 to 13 volts DC. So this is where it gets a little funky. I don't currently have any of the electric start system. I've got a plan for that. I think I've tracked down a starter that'll work. Just got to wait for it to come in the mail. So we're not worried about this half of the schematic right now. I don't have the original ignition switch. I could find one, but for my needs, I just went with 2 switches. A kill button and a fuel pump switch. So for out of our rectifier, we have 1 wire. I ran straight to the fuel pump switch instead. And then the other wire that came out of the rectifier, we ran to the battery, which runs from the battery, like it does here, runs to the battery, and then it actually runs up to the switch too. So they're both running to the fuel pump switch, which I think should be fine. Then obviously that switch runs down to the fuel pump. Our ignition switch, that's just the black wire that comes out with these yellow wires, and that just goes to the switch, and then that switch goes back to the battery ground. Battery ground goes to the engine ground. So we have a functioning electrical system now. We got our fuel pump mounted, shortened up our fuel hose, got it all tucked up. I'm not pumped on how everything kind of tucked up, but we've got it all where I hope it won't rub on anything. Wiring and fuel hose. I need to throw some conduit on that fuel hose in a couple spots, but yeah, I ran it down here. There is just a million things to watch out for. Linkages, chains, belts, pull cords. There's all kinds of things to watch out for with wiring in this thing. All this stuff is original electric start stuff. That's actually the starter button. I don't know why the hell it's under the seat. I will be putting it up on the dash so I can start this thing with the seat down when I get my starter, hopefully. I don't know if that'll be in this video. All right. So I did fire it up. It does, fuel pump works. And it does actually charge, which is impressive because I definitely thought I let the magic smoke out of those charging coils when I first got this thing running, trying to get this thing to get spark. But miraculously, that works and that rectifier works. So that is really cool. Yeah, I don't want to start it up just to show you guys because it's so gosh damn smoky. And I want to be able to keep working. So I am going to move on to the next thing on our list here. Fuel pump wire. Maybe we'll change on the tranny oil. I think I ordered that in the mail. I don't know where that went. Air filter, that's kind of not fun because I ordered the wrong air filter. Yeah, really nothing left is fun. Maybe we'll work on the seat. All right, so for fixing the seat, I procured a piece of plywood from my neighbor's house. Kind of makes it sound like I stole it out of his walls or something. I didn't steal it out of his walls. He gave it to me. It's like 3/4, I guess. Yeah, not that much better than what I have. Well, it is, but it's not perfect. Let me go grab the seat. So the seat plywood is just no good. You can see where I fell through it the other night, actually. I want to make sure this has some strength so I don't break through the plastic underneath of it, of the actual Attex itself. So I was going to pull all the staples and pull that plywood out, but I'll probably just destroy this material. I don't have any of that, and I want to ride this thing tomorrow. So I think we'll do the ghetto thing and just cut a piece of plywood here. Oh, this thing is perfect. Oh, we'll cut a piece of plywood and just double them up. Run a million screws through it and temporarily repair the seat that way. Let's face it, this thing's pretty junk. All right, so we can grab my circular saw. It's been a while since I've done that. Check this baby out, by the way. Let's get you zoomed in here. This is a really old Porter Cable Speedmatic saw. I picked it up at a yard sale at a skate range of all places. I think I paid like $25. It's got an awesome case. Thing's got some heft to it. I don't really enjoy woodworking. I am much more of a metalworking person. This saw makes it a little bit more fun for me because of how cool it is. Just a nice old school saw. Oh, wait, this is a skill saw. Quarter cable, I don't know. Maybe it ended up in a different box at some point in its life. Yeah, if anyone could tell me what age this thing is, I'd love to know. I have a remarkably small breaker out here. I have a very little electrical power, actually. My air compressor pretty often blows the breaker, so it's been a while since I've used this. I don't know if it'll do the same thing or not. Probably should have done a little sanding on the edges of this, but it will. All right, most of those kind of bit into something. That should work. Cool. That should be a lot stiffer. Yeah, it is. All right, awesome. Next thing on the list. All right, I thought I was missing some elaborate piece of like shifter linkage for the forward and reverse box here. Turns out it's just a matter, I posted on the Attex forum on Facebook, thanks to those guys. Turns out it's just a matter of a piece of 1/2-inch square stock that has a hole in it and then pokes through here. So I think I have some of that. I'm just gonna see what length to make it. So we'll lock this back. I'll be the furthest it'll go. Maybe we'll do 13.5. Does that put us at fully extended? Yeah, 13.5 with some sort of a ball or something on the end to make it easier to grab. All right, so it's not centered by any means since this is a piece of square stock. And I'm using a 3-jaw chuck because that's all I have for my little lathe here. But I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Look at it. Looks kind of professional. We had to cut down this half so that it'll leave enough clearance for a pin. Probably should have made it a 1/4 of an inch longer, but it can go into each gear, no problem. So I am happy enough with that. Looks kind of cool. Pretty proud for that for 11 p.m. on a Friday after I just worked all day. All right, so the next project here I've been putting off. Not because it's hard, it just takes a while. This thing's got a lot of tires, believe it or not. Whew. Okay, Let me get some light. So, in the last video I did on this thing, I made these spacers. I plasma cut them out of 1/4 inch plate, and they just bolt to the center original pattern. And then I took carriage bolts and cut these squares, so now the carriage bolts go in there. And what my plan is tonight, we are going to install these. They're called misalignment washers. And this was my way of helping center the wheel onto the stud, or in this case, a carriage bolt. Because I ordered or used, I think these are 1/2 inch 13 carriage bolts. And I couldn't find a nut that had a chamfer on it. And these are not hub piloted wheels. Actually, really, the hub needs to be opened up more so I can get it off those 3 nut guys. So tonight's plan is just install these misalignment washers. We're going to open up the center hole of the wheel a little bit. This, so we can get those nuts, or get the wheels on and off a little easier. And the last thing I need to do is, in a few spots, like this wheel, I think, we actually trashed the threads on those nuts. So I think I can just, yeah, you're not gonna be able to see it, but those are just tacked in place on the original axles, or whatever you want to call them. So that should be no big deal to cut that off, put a new bolt and nut in there, and call it good, because I don't want any wheels snapping off. All right, well, here's something I didn't know until a few years ago, didn't know existed. So to open up the inner hole of this wheel, usually you'd be regulated to a die grinder, but this is called a cone stone. It goes on a standard 4.5 inch grinder, so you have the power of a 4.5 inch grinder and the ability to do some heavy duty die grinding. Now, it's going to be a little tough to fit down in there. Maybe from the back side it'd be a little easier. It should do the trick, I hope. So the only way I would recommend grinding out the center of a wheel like that is when they are not hub centric. If this is a hub centric wheel, I wouldn't do that, or I'd be a lot more precise about it at least. But these are lug centric, as I said. That's why we're using these little misalignment washers. And then this is a little janky. I wouldn't do this on a truck, but for a 6x6, I think we're okay. And plus, we've got 2 extra wheels if one falls off, so I'm not too concerned. All right, we can cross that off, cross that off. We get 2 things left. So I stayed up late last night and continued into this morning, adding all the centering washers. Didn't actually have to re-weld any of those center 3 bolts. I just had to find new fine thread nuts for a couple that were stripped out. But we got them all on. They're torqued up pretty good. I also greased all of the hubs. They're Zerks. They're kind of, some are on the bottom, some are on the top. They were bone dry. I have the Milwaukee grease gun. Really handy tool, not just for convenience, but if you've got some grease zerks that haven't seen grease in a long time, that is the tool to use for sure. Yeah, the only other thing I did was on this wheel, I had to add a bolt that was missing its pin, so that hub could have just free spun. It really could have just shot off there if it wanted to. So we're all good there now, which is awesome. Next thing we need is to figure out an air filter and change this oil in the transmission, which are the 2 things I was kind of waiting on because I need parts for each of them. So the air filter here, we got this one on Amazon. It's got a Porsche on it, so it must be for performance engines only. The issue is, and I should have thought more about this when I was ordering it, freaking huge. Probably way too big. And I don't have time to send it back because I really want to ride this thing today. So obviously that's not going to fit there. So we need to come up with some sort of like angular dude. Get this up. But yeah, what a fiasco. Yeah, we got to figure out something custom for the air filter. or find another one. I thought I had a spare for this guy, which would probably fit much better. Maybe I'll do a little digging before we ruin that one. All right, we got good news and bad news. Bad news first. Apparently you can't drain these. So this is the 7000 series transmission. I think these were actually manufactured by Attex themselves, I think. There's no drain. There is a check level, which is pretty low. So I opened that up, and more bad news, it's full of goop. But the good news is I was able to get some in it. At least it had something in it. Pretty nasty stuff, and I jammed a bunch of new oil in it and then kind of flushed the old oil out. But that's going to be on our radar for a future. Remove it, tip it upside down, drain it, flush it out with some diesel or something, slap it back together. But it has some fresher oil in it now, so it should be good. So now I want to take this thing for a spin around the backyard, and then we'll load it up on the truck and take it to the actual testing grounds. But I figure this would be a good time to do this. It's got to get this Honda. This is the four-wheeler that came in that package of 4 of them. I bought 4 of them in a snowmobile. So I got to push this out of the way. No big deal. That tire's going flat, and I had someone actually send me something to try out on the channel. They didn't pay me for this, so I think I could give a pretty honest review. They just sent it to me and said, try it out. So this is a Gulu air compressor. They also sent me a jump pack, but I don't have a use for that yet. So let's hook it up and see what it does. So this just has one of those little clamp guys. Put that on. Turn the on button on. Okay. Ooh, you can change modes. We'll go with car. That's brightness. Would have helped if I read the directions. There we go. Not a huge fan of these ends. Or maybe that tire was just that low, I don't know. But that should be enough to push it around. Well, I'm not sure how much these things cost. They said they're having a big Black Friday sale, which is coming up as this video comes out. Kind of handy size for a little air compressor. It'll definitely be nice to throw in the back of this thing or the coot, or on this, take out on the trail instead of my big Vi-Air one. I think it's a decent little unit. All right, I think we're ready to take this thing for a spin now. Well, it was acting like I ran out of fuel, and I couldn't get any pressure out that end. What the hell? Opened up the tank, it's bubbling. Lo and behold, someone got the pump on backwards. All right, we got that mistake corrected. Not getting any fuel. Huh. What if this air filter's too restrictive? Oh, I just blew that out. Nice. All right. I don't know why, but it's happy now. is shaking, but there's no good way for me to hold the camera and drive this thing. That was weird. Okay, we have some things to work out. We are not taking this riding today. Okay, so it does run, and it made a trip around the yard, but it's got some problems. One, that's pretty simple. Our shifter needs to be longer. Two, and the biggest one is doesn't run quite right. We're gonna do some tuning, which I'm not looking forward to since this is not the original carb. I might have to rejet it. And then at the end there, I don't know what was going on, but it was, it almost was like it was running. I had hit the kill switch and it kept going. So I thought maybe my kill switch had come undone. That's why I lifted up this floor pan, and that wasn't the issue. And then all of a sudden it sounded a little different. And then the kill switch worked. So I don't know what was going on there. It was like it was trying to run away for a second. Yeah. We got to do a little bit of more work to her. This thing is an absolute yard destroyer. Jeez, Pete. Doesn't help it rained yesterday. All right, I did a little bit of tuning on the carburetor. Got it to run off choke, which is good. But then it died on me, which is not good. Died rather quickly. I hope it's not seized up. I think it was smoking, so it must have been getting oil. Yeah, it's in gear. Whoa. Yeah, all right, we're good. All right, everybody. I hate to say it, but I think we're going to cut the video off here. This thing's just got too many little things. The biggest one being this air filter. I want to order something a little more proper. This has already got a hole blown in it. This thing makes so much dust in here. I want to vacuum all that crap out, and I want to order some spare chain, because I know one of these, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 chains is going to blow apart. I don't want to drive an hour to drive this thing for 5 minutes and have the chain blow off and, yeah, waste a bunch of time. So we'll order an air filter, order some spare chain, extend the shifter, and I'm also going to order the starter, I think, before next weekend. And we'll take it for a spin then. So hopefully I can do, if everything goes well, I can make these videos back to back for you guys. So either way, we got a ton done in this video. I'm really happy with our progress. Took this thing from sitting for 1.5 years because of me Really, this thing sat for like 20 years. I got it running a year and a half ago. And that was about it. We put tires on it, spent a bunch of money on it. Then it sat, and in the course of a week, I got it running again. I got the charging system working. I got the recoil fixed. I got the exhaust hooked up. I got the transmission figured out, which was huge. Built a shifter, tuned the carburetor a little bit, all new wiring, fuel system's cleaned up. We got our adapters and our wheel studs. Those are all good. I'm actually really happy with where this thing's at. I just need to do a little bit more work, and I don't want to rush into going to ride this thing and hurt it more. Also looks like I might need to clean these discs up a little, but we can do that. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next weekend, hopefully, where we take this thing for a spin. I will see if it'll fire up once more, and we'll take it for another lap around the yard maybe.